Oh, hi, Mark. So I went to the movies. Want to take a wild guess at what I saw? Evil Dead Burn is the newest film in the Evil Dead franchise, as you might be able to deduce by the fact that the thing that precedes Burn in the title is Evil Dead. So, what did I think of Evil Dead Burn? Well, I'm going to start right off the bat telling you that I might have a new least favorite Evil Dead movie. To be honest with you. However, in saying that, I don't dislike this movie. Not even a little bit. This movie did not ruin the franchise streak of never having a bad movie. Evil Dead has still never had a bad movie. Evil Dead Burn is a good horror movie. I am not as high on it as it seems like maybe some other people are, but I do like this movie a good amount. I have some notes here, so I'll be consulting them from time to time because I don't memorize things. Committing things to memory is far too much work, and well, work isn't my style, especially when it's not required of me. See, I have to work to maintain, living, but I don't have to work for this bullshit. So I'll get started on my positives. Well, actually, I guess I could tell you what the movie's about, huh? So, in the wake of a personal, familial tragedy, um, this woman kind of, uh, well, let's just say she goes to her husband's funeral, and the only other people at this funeral are his family. And the circumstances revolving his death were violent and demonic in nature, but no one knows that they were demonic yet. So, and then, fuckery ensues from there because the demons transferred to a family member, and now shit's about to get real. Um, so, starting off with the positives, it most certainly is vicious. I mean, if you've seen an Evil Dead movie, you know that's kind of where they lean. Pretty much all of them, with the exception of Army of Darkness, um, go for manic, batshit insane ultra violence. And this movie definitely goes there, but it takes a little longer to get there, which is something that I'm not a huge fan of. Hi, Quinny. It's something that I'm not a huge fan of because the other Evil Dead movies, it seems like they right off the bat, they just get right into it, and there's no brakes on that train from there forward. And I do prefer that, especially for an Evil Dead movie, because it's, I mean, that's kind of the point. The unhinged chaos of it all is kind of the point. And it definitely has unhinged chaos. And the pacing doesn't necessarily affect my feelings about the movie too much, because once the movie gets going, it really gets going. And as I said, when the violence starts, it is vicious, it is insane. I will say, for me, the violence, it's funny to say that it's toned down, because if you've seen the film, you know how crazy the violence is. But I think it's crazier in like Evil Dead 2013, definitely, and maybe even like Evil Dead Rise. And I might change my opinion on that upon rewatch, because I just rewatched Evil Dead Rise a couple of days ago, and I adored Evil Dead Rise on the next watch. So I think that probably my opinion on this movie is going to evolve over time, and it's not just going to stay at, well, the violence might not have been enough for me. Um, but in terms of the way the demons talk in this movie, um, there were times where I was thinking, these don't really feel like Deadites, and that is a problem for me. But they do, they do get a lot more evil and vicious, and they get very personal, just like you expect these modern demons to. Um, well, really, they've done that for the whole Evil Dead series. I think the modern movies are just a bit better at portraying them because the modern movies are a bit better at portraying actual characters. Um, and so you have these demons that are they're really cutting deep in terms of the things that they are of the things that they are mocking and jabbing at people with, both physically and verbally. Because my God, there are some cringy scenes in this movie. There is a scene involving an ear. And I didn't know sound design could get that visceral. That is so nasty. That is nasty. That is mean. It is evil. Holy shit. That horrible. Horrible. I was sitting there wincing in the theater, but it was so good. My fiance, she couldn't handle it. Like she was literally like I could see her stimming. Um, she didn't like it at all. Um, and then I mean, there's still a lot of other violence in the movie that qualifies and sits up there with the other Evil Dead films. Um, the soundtrack is very cool. This movie was directed by, I don't remember his name, but it's the same gentleman who directed Infested from a couple of years ago. And I really liked Infested, and something that Infested did was it had a lot of French rap music in it. Evil Dead Burn has some French rap music in it, but it also has this great, what sounds like a French love song in there. And I love the needle drop on the French love song every time it happens. It happens, I believe, twice in the film. And I think it's really well done. I think it fits the scenes really well. Just really fantastic soundtrack. It is shot exceptionally well. I mean, like, at times, I think towards the beginning, I was leaning towards not liking it as much because I was kind of sitting there going, well, it's just like it's doing the Evil Dead thing. It's trying to be an Evil Dead movie. But as the movie goes on, which I know is a really stupid criticism, well, it's trying to be an Evil Dead movie. Fuck this guy. I think I was uppity because it was taking so long to get started. I think is what it was. I think I was just being a dickhead. But I mean, by the time the chaos ensues and everything begins popping off for realsies, it becomes just fantastic. Just the way that the camera moves, the things that it focuses on. Like, there's one scene where the camera is focused on a character, but you just see this chaotic brawl going on in the background. And it's just, she's in the foreground, but your attention is mostly in the background on this blurry thing that's happening, and you can't quite see what's happening. And I think that is really effective and really cool. I mean, there are a lot of cool camera shots in this movie. Of course, it does the classic Sam Raimi POV shot that is in every single Evil Dead movie. It is a staple of these movies. You can't make an Evil Dead movie without that, and if they ever do, I will riot. I do enjoy the setting. So the film is set in this large house that has basically been abandoned and left to rot. And the beginning is set in a crematorium, which I thought that would have been awesome, personally, if you just had the chaos break out in a crematorium. That would have been so cool. Have the whole movie set in there. I don't know how that would have worked really, because the crematorium's definitely a little smaller than the house, and it's more in like a metro location, but I'm sure that they could find a way to make that work, and I would have liked that better as a setting, but this isolated home, I will say, definitely, it breeds the kind of isolated um, atmosphere that most Evil Dead movies go for and most Evil Dead movies succeed with, and I think this movie succeeds with it just the same. It is a great setting. It breeds a great atmosphere. You see just how isolated they are. There are shots of like all the basically miles of wilderness around them, but it's like it's not like trees and shit. It's like barren, like the area's been logged. It's very interesting visually. Um, Another thing that I think is fantastic in this movie and that has been sorely missing from Evil Dead films is the sense of humor. Now, if you watched my Evil Dead Rise review, I said in that movie that I didn't really like that movie's attempts at humor. And I didn't. Not in Evil Dead Rise, because Evil Dead Rise felt like such a serious horror film, and it was so scary at so many scenes that these these attempts at humor that it did just very much so felt like uh, it felt like the modern horror movie thing where it breaks tension for the sake of a giggle. Whereas in this movie, it's consistently trying to make you laugh, but not in the Evil Dead 2 sense where everything is so batshit crazy, you're almost meant not to take some of these scenes seriously. You're supposed to take every single scene seriously, and I'm not even sure that I'd classify this as a horror comedy, or if I would just, I mean, I don't know, you potentially could. There's so much humor in it, but the humor is also, it's toned down a little bit. It's still there, and it is usually pitch black. It is very, very dark humor, but I really do like this movie's attempts at humor. I think they land. My fiance and I were both sitting there chuckling and giggling a lot of the times in the theater. There are some callbacks to older Evil Dead movies. If you pay attention, when they put the grandma on the like the motorized thing that goes up the stairs to help her up the stairs, there's a picture of Bruce Campbell on that staircase, which I thought was a very cool callback. And then for my final like, which who knows, maybe I'll think of something when I'm getting into the dislikes, but for my final like, I want to talk about the main character for a second. She's a very strong character, and she has a great arc in the movie, where she's just sick of the shit by the end of it, and I think that's great. But that sort of leads into my dislikes a little bit. Now, in terms of the main character, she doesn't talk a whole lot. She doesn't talk a whole lot, which I do sort of understand is her character. But it also, I don't know. I feel like that makes it harder to root for her for a while. The fact that you don't hardly hear shit out of her face, just because she's been so traumatized, and she's so reserved that you never really get much out of her. But she is a good, strong character. So now we're actually going into my dislikes. Slash the things I'm neutral about, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So first of all, this movie has a lot of logical inconsistencies. And I don't just mean within this film, I mean that the director seems to think Deadites are super villains. I'm not going to spoil anything in terms of that, but they have basically they have super strength in this movie, which I don't think is a spoiler. So that's bullshit. Like, they never had that degree of super strength before. Definitely in the older Evil Dead films, you'd sometimes see them like backhand someone and they'd fly across the room or something. But like you never saw them do anything that just like, you know, completely defies logic. In this movie, that happens a lot. Well, okay, you see them do things that defy logic, but not in terms of their raw strength. Um, in this movie, it happens a lot. I mean, there's like I don't know if I want to get into all the examples because I guess those are kind of spoilers, but I guess I'll give you one example without getting too much into it. There's a scene on a lake and someone gets pulled into the lake and the water just gets really bloody. It's not suggested really that this deadite has a weapon. It's never shown with a weapon. So I think the notion is that it just rips him apart in the water. And we even see his decapitated head a little later. So his head is just like ripped from the body. That doesn't happen in any other Evil Dead movie. And it kind of leads to these deadites not feeling a whole lot like deadites, which I'll get into a little bit later because there's more to that kind of makes that the case in my personal opinion. But yeah, they just they give them superpowers, and it feels really weird for an Evil Dead movie. But at the same time, I understand that, like, these are demons, they're deadites, it's illogical, it's not real. So, you know, like, you can't be too mad at that. It was just something that kind of threw me off and kind of throws me off even now thinking about it. But there are some great sequences that come from that. But when you get even more into that, you have actual logical inconsistencies where, like, there's a deadite that gets entrapped in something, ensnared in something, and it can't get out. And it tries sawing a piece of its anatomy off to get out of the situation instead of just ripping the thing off the wall, which, like, it definitely could do, you know. Or, like, there's a deadite outside, it can't break the door down. There's a deadite downstairs, it can't get back upstairs. It doesn't really make any sense when you think about it too hard, because they have literal super strength, dude. Like, they're doing things that are they're Jason Voorhees in the form of deadites. So I don't really understand that. Then there's a rule established in the film, and this goes back into the logical inconsistencies and the plot inconsistencies of the movie. There is something that happens in the film that suggests that the deadites can only die through a certain means. And all the movies kind of establish this. Like, they all have their own things. Like, in Evil Dead Rise, you essentially have to eviscerate the demons. Like, just completely reduce them to nothing. In Evil Dead 2013, you have to dismember them, bury them alive, or burn them. In Evil Dead Burn, there's a similar rule, but the issue that I have with that is that it seems like every once in a while the movie forgets, and it's just like, oh, no, that demon's dead. No, she did it. And she didn't use the means that the movie just told us that she was going to have to use. That's weird to me. I don't understand. Like, why tell us? Why make this thing a whole big deal? And then you've also created a plot that revolves around that, even to the degree that that's practically the reason the demons are there in the first place. And I'm trying to be as vague as humanly possible so I don't spoil things for you. But that feels really weird to me. To where now, like, oh, no, she killed him. Yeah, I mean, what's she gonna do? And then, like, there's a demon that gets decapitated at one point, and the head is still talking. There's another demon that gets decapitated and dead. At least I'm pretty sure that happens. Just decapitation, dead. So that doesn't make any damn sense. And then, in addition to this, and this is what I was talking about when I was saying earlier that they don't feel that much like Deadites, is they have an actual reason for being there. In every previous Evil Dead movie, the Deadites aren't exactly cold, calculated planners. They are not schemers. They're like dogs chasing cars. They wouldn't know what to do with one if they caught it. But they are just there to cause chaos. They relish in it. They love it. That's what they're there to do. They want souls and they want chaos in the meantime. In this movie, they have an actual objective and reason for being there. While it's an interesting thought, and it kind of expands the Evil Dead lore in a unique way, because no other Evil Dead movie has really done this other than the demons were summoned. Now they're here to fuck shit up. This movie explores them being at a place for an actual reason. They have an actual objective. I don't know how I feel about that. This is something that I'm kind of neutral on. I think it's interesting to give them an objective, because it's like they can't always just be running around causing chaos, reaping souls for no reason. But at the same time, it didn't feel too Evil Dead-ish, and sometimes these demons just end up feeling like generic demons because of the reasons I've outlined. And I don't know, like, the amount of, that's another thing, the amount of, like, voice manipulation they do in terms of, like, how the demons have this obviously distorted demonic voice, and then they'll go back to just, like, talking like a person. And in all the previous Evil Dead films, it was really clear that, it was still the demon. Like, they were trying to be manipulative, but it wasn't working very well because they're a demon and they can't mimic people very well. But, like, at times they just sound like the character they're trying to mimic. And I have to get through this really quick because my phone just hit 5%. There's some stupid character decisions. I'm not going to go any deeper into that. And then the thing that I will talk on for just a second is there is a CGI finale that just I don't understand it. The thing looked like Imhotep from The Mummy, the 1999 Brendan Fraser The Mummy, but a little crispy. Like, well, I guess Imhotep did kind of look crispy. But it wasn't very good. I don't really appreciate that CGI monstrosity. I don't understand it. Is it a Deadite taking the form of that person? Is it that person that has come back? Is it, what the fuck is it? What's it supposed to be? Like, it's not the Abomination from, like, Evil Dead 2013, because that's not anything. I get it's like a past demon or whatever, like, of our main character. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. And it just feels like it's in there to give the movie a place to end. So, on that, I'm going to go ahead and end this because, like I said, my phone's about to die. But I did like Evil Dead Burn. It's a really fun movie. I think you should probably go and see it if you want to do that. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. That's the same rating I gave Army of Darkness. These are neck and neck for probably my least favorite Evil Dead movie. I think a 7 out of 10 is fine, and I'm not at all upset by the quality of the movie. It is still a very good, fun horror movie. I will catch you guys on the next one.